Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready for the Wot Supp podcast. With your host, Stu, OG Industry Shannon, and Will warren-davey, new school formulator extraordinaire. We're talking all things supplements with insiders, athletes, experts, and more. So sit back, relax, and prepare to find out what's up.
Welcome back, guys, to yet another episode of the Wot Supp podcast with my usual co-host, Stu. Shannon, good morning, Stu.
G'day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. A very exciting episode ahead of us. I'm sure you're excited about this one too, Will.
Mate, it's very exciting because we have lovely Nerida in from Lissome Strength and Conditioning Gym, some of Australia's biggest female-only gyms. And she's got 2 locations now, which has been phenomenal. I recently went along and sort of got a chance to see the insights of how these clubs run. It's been really awesome, though, to very quickly realise, Nerida, I think you've got a lot more value to share than just how to run a good gym. So I thought we'd get...
Thank you.
Pleasure. I thought we'd get you on and start picking your brain around, what got you to where you are currently, like what the early days looked like. And I guess if you looking back at the early foundations of Lissome and your business life, how that came into fruition, how that journey started.
Yeah, it's a long one. So
well, we've got an hour, so
yeah.
Hey, fill out the time for us.
Okay, I'll try and streamline this as much as I can. Basically, I've always played a lot of sport. I've always been pretty active, but never really in the gym scene. 15 years ago, I moved overseas, traveled around for a couple of years, had a great time. But in that period, gained something like 20 kilos, just through not really exercising at all and just having a good time traveling, eating, and just not really kind of looking after my health. Found myself coming back to Australia and really struggling to kind of, get back into shape. And, I joined a gym and I was doing classes and I thought I was eating well. And I was just in this really unusual position where I really had no idea about nutrition or training. And I felt really lost. I felt really kind of depressed and just, I just was not feeling myself. And my partner and I at the time bought a house across the road from a CrossFit gym. And it was one of the very first at that time. This was 10 years ago. And, I remember just never having heard about CrossFit before. And just watching these people doing crazy things like, they were literally, 30 meters outside of my bedroom window. And every morning I'd wake up at like 5:30 a.m. and I'd peek through the blinds and, I'd see all these girls doing, things like pull-ups and running and rowing and skipping and flipping tires and lifting weights. And, and I just, even though I was overweight, it was funny. So many people had this fear about going to a gym, that they'll be judged and they won't fit in and they won't be accepted. And the irony is I actually didn't have any of that at all. I was completely naive. I, just decided one day I'd go straight over and sign up. So I found myself heading over there and I walked in and I remember just thinking I was walking into a Rocky scene. Like, that movie Rocky, it's just,
right.
They're training in the gym and it just gets you so pumped. That's what it was like. And I was just in awe. And, I was looking for the owner or someone to kind of chat to, and this guy, like after a while, finally approached me, and I was kind of asking him all these questions like, how does this work, what's the deal, I don't understand the whole CrossFit concept, like is it a membership, is it a PT thing, how does it work? And I was basically just like, give me, like, I'm giving you money, like just sign me up, I'll pay whatever it is, just I'm so keen. And he looked me up and down and he said, darling, this is not for you.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I was kind of really shocked and taken aback, and I felt really humiliated, and kind of turned around and set me out. That was it. It was literally one sentence, and it was all I could do to kind of like, not become emotional and kind of tear up. And I was just thinking, all these people are looking at you. Don't cry. Like, don't be embarrassed. It's fine. Just anyway, and that was pretty awful. And that kind of then set the tone for the gym scene for me for the next 6 months or so. And, I still really wanted to be a part of it, but, I just then really got this kind of I suppose, idea that you really had to be fit and you had to be elite to go to one of these gyms. Anyway, fast forward, almost a year, and I bumped into a friend of mine who had lost about 15 kilos. He was looking great. He was just glowing. He was so happy. We bumped into each other at a barbecue. It was actually an Australia Day barbecue, so it would have been 11 years ago. And I said to him, what have you been doing? And he said, I've been doing CrossFit. And I was like, oh, damn it. I so want to do that. And I just can't because, I'm too out of shape. Anyway, he convinced me to go to his gym, which was, a couple of kilometers down the road. And he said, it's completely different. There's a community vibe. It's great. The owner's amazing. And I really didn't want to go, but just to kind of shut him up, I said I would go. And we booked to go the following Thursday at 5 p.m. And I remember that morning waking up, like all week I was thinking, I'm just going to text him and I'm going to just find an excuse to get out of it. Like there's no way I'm going, because I just had these reoccurring kind of, nightmares of what had happened to me the last time I'd stepped foot into a CrossFit gym. And he sent me a message that morning and he said, don't even think about canceling. I'll see you at 5 p.m. And all day I was so anxious. Like I'm not an anxious person at all. And I was shaking all day. Anyway, I made myself go and I was driving in and I was watching all these people training, like running, and everyone looked fit. And I was thinking, what am I doing here? Anyway, I got out of the car and I walked in and, I had the complete opposite experience. It was like a polar experience, Within 5 seconds of walking into the gym, the owner came straight over to me and introduced himself to me. He already knew my name. He was expecting me. Nerida, it's nice to meet you. Ed's been telling me all about you. I'm so excited. Come on in. Introduced me to 5 or 6 members. They were all so friendly. And I'm thinking, this is so strange. And the first workout we did was something crazy. It was like 5 rounds of 400-meter run, 20 box jumps, 20 kettlebell swings, and 20 pull-ups. It was crazy. 20 burpees. And, this gym was situated on this huge oval. And I remember running out, and I was not even halfway around that first lap. And every single person was running into the gym and they were done their first 400-meter loop. But luckily, and I've seen over the years, I've seen how much judgment people can have of themselves when they're not as fit as everyone else and this and that. But I had trained pretty hard and I just knew, I just said to myself, this is the first day of 3 months. Like it's going to suck for 3 months, but you just have to keep showing up, do the work. It's going to be okay. Anyway, we get to the last round. Everyone's finished. I've got 20 burpees to go. I'm like light years behind everybody else. The fact that I even finished it, I look back and I just think it's just unbelievable that I did. And the last round of 20 burpees, I'm not even kidding you. Every single person in that gym gets down and does 20 extra burpees with me. And I've got this guy yelling. He's going 20, 19, 18, and they're counting me down, the whole gym. They're just like counting me down. And I finished my last burpee and everyone just came over and high-fived me. One lady hugged me and I was just so emotional. I can't explain it. It was the most incredible feeling. And of course that was enough to kind of get me to sign up. And so I signed up on the day and the owner said to me, what are your goals? And I was in tears when I said, I really want to lose 20 kilos. And he said, come along and sign up and train 5-6 days a week. I just want you to show up every day and we're going to look at your nutrition and, I'll help you do that. And I'm, within 12 weeks to the day, I'd lost 21 kilos. And not only that, it's not even about the weight. I felt better than I'd ever felt in my life. I was an athlete. I was running, I was skipping, I was riding, I was lifting weights. I was a changed person and I just felt, better than ever. I was sleeping better. I had all these friendships, people that were supporting me, it was the first time, I'd socialized with people without having to go out and drink alcohol. I was getting invited out to breakfast and to coffee and to barbecues. And, I wasn't surrounded with this culture of just eating and drinking and just partying constantly. So obviously I was hooked. And then that put me on a path where, I trained in the CrossFit, environment for years, and I know that I tell that story of that first CrossFit gym. But in my experience, I've probably visited over 50 CrossFit gyms throughout Australia. And I would have to say the majority of them are more towards the second experience I had than the first. So please don't take this as me bagging out CrossFit because I'm a massive advocate for the sport. I think that what it's done for women, for the first time, I don't care what you say, but, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you'd walk up to Merewether Beach, Newcastle Beach, you would never see women confident enough to walk around in their, their sports bras and booty shorts. And, now I walk around and I see women everywhere, like proud of their bodies. They lift weights. CrossFit's the first thing that's come along and made it okay for women to lift weights and to play sport and to get strong and, to wear, crop tops and booty shorts and be proud of themselves no matter what. And I'm such a, I'm so glad that, we've experienced that, because I don't think it would have happened without CrossFit.
Yeah, well, sorry, Nerida. I don't want to cut you off, but
please.
I was just going to bring up a point on that. I think that, CrossFit and this whole functional fitness movement, it's really something that I think that the biggest cultural change in it that I saw in the gym scene was that previously gym had been a very individual sport per se. You go to the gym and you train, and there was no real way to do it with a group. Yeah. There was no real way to do it and create a sense of community other than the fact that you trained at the same gym as someone else. And hey, maybe you caught up with each other, for a smoothie at the end. Yeah. But there was no kind of, synergy between the members at gyms before that. You would go and do your own session. And, I think that CrossFit and functional fitness, it's changed a lot of that. And it's created it's like a little team, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone in their box or whatever it is, they have their little group and they're like a tribe almost.
That's something you've done really well, Nerida, I think, as a really nice thing you touched on, Stu, community, right? I think. And that was one thing that I wanted to actually flesh out, because I think one of the things that struck me was, you've got a really good culture of community there. You've got your own podcast within your club. You've got people that the members are feeling celebrated. They're part of it. That's something I think in any business would be, that's something that everyone is sought after. Like if you ask, we have guests from many, from largely the fitness industry, but from a, diverse background of, and some of them have got 20 years in the game. Some are just quite fresh to it. And that seems to be a big goal of a lot of people who are trying to start a business or build a company or have a product or a brand. They're trying to build a sense of community, a sense of involvement. And you seem to have executed that really quite well. How did that come back? So I think a lot of our listeners who are business owners and people who want to be business owners and want to, really, make something of themselves in the fitness space, that's something they would 100% want to know. Yeah, how did you go about it?
Well, I think what's interesting is I look back on my life and now, Steve Jobs always said, you can only connect the dots looking back. And I grew up with two parents who were hearing impaired. And so I grew up watching them be isolated from community constantly. And I always felt really strongly about that. And I didn't really put it together until a couple of years ago. I was interviewed on another podcast and someone mentioned it. And I thought, you know what, that's probably a really good point. When I go into my gym now, I'm constantly looking for the person who's left out. I'm constantly looking for the person who's not engaged. I'm constantly looking for those who aren't, a part of that circle. And then what I used to do, I used to go up and initiate that myself. I would go over to that person and talk to them and try and bring them in. But now what I've learned is I'm better off doing, and this is why, because I'm expanding and I want this feeling to exist at every gym, no matter what, whether I'm there or not, is now it's up to me to educate my community and my coaches and my leaders around that. So I'm constantly talking to them about inclusion, looking for it, how to make it happen. We talk about different tactics. Like, it's funny. So many gyms talk about community and I'm sorry, but like,
I don't have
it cracks me up. Just because you talk about it doesn't mean it exists. Like, I am psychopathic when I talk about community, like to the point where, I'll build out like, say for instance, one example of a little tool that we have is called the X Factor. Now, people are creatures of habit, right? So when the girls come into the gym, they generally always train in the same spot every time. And it's always the coach is always at the front, and it's always the leaders come to the front because they're more confident and more self-assured, they're more secure. They come to the front. Then you've got the slightly less experienced people, but a little bit more confident, a little bit more happy to engage and be a part of it in the middle. Then you have the newer, and more kind of like self-conscious people at the back. And if you just let that happen, if you just kind of let people do what they do, you will always have a disconnect between those people at the front and the people at the back. So how do you make that happen? How do you get people to move and to blend and to, connect? So we have this thing called the X Factor, where we talk to the girls about being super mindful of, all right, Monday I trained up in the right front left-hand corner. The right front corner. Tuesday, I'm going to go to the middle of the left corner. Wednesday, I'm going to go to the back right. And you've got to find a way to get around the room so that you're placing yourself around different people constantly. We're constantly asking people to, in warm-ups or in workouts or just for a general minute, a quick minute game, find the one person in the room that you know the least, go and grab that person and you run out to the 400-meter mark, and I want you to find out 3 things about that person. What people fail to do, what happens in gyms that I've witnessed, and I would go to bet that 99% of gyms operate this way. Your leaders and your more experienced athletes all know each other really, really well and all hang out and they socialize together and they've got a great connection. Then you've got the ones that are just outside of that group and they all kind of hang out together and they've got connections. And then you've got these kind of what I call, the outsiders, which isn't a way to, it's not a term that I use to push them out. It's more of a term to recognize who are these people that come in and they don't feel like they can just walk up to somebody and start a conversation, and whose responsibility is it to grab them and pull them in. And it's making people aware of how influential they are and how meaningful it is when they do it. I've had so many women say to me, I've had women when I've partnered up with girls in a workout write me a message afterwards and say, gosh, when you said you wanted to partner with me, I was freaking out, but I'm so glad you did. That was the best session, just to train with you, you're so inspiring. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm getting girls that are getting that message from other members and write to me and say, you know what, I partnered with so-and-so today and it really made her day. When people come into the gym, they're so self-focused. They're so focused on themselves. And what we need to do more so is focus on what am I contributing and how am I, adding to this community and this environment and this atmosphere today? And how am I doing that in a positive way?
I think it's something that is so interesting that you do, and something that I had to learn really through I guess a crash course is that women and men they respond differently to different styles of I guess of trainer and of training. I've worked a lot with women. I was just a general personal trainer when I started out long time ago, before I ever did supplements. I've been in supplements since 2009. Before that, I was a personal trainer, but I was engaged at the time and I was getting dragged around to all these bridal expos by my ex. And I remember hearing all the brides to be saying the same things to the dressmakers, which was basically, look, I'm a 12 now, but I want to be a 10 by my wedding, or I'm a 14 now, but I want to be a 12 by my wedding. And I thought, you know what? Every girl who is getting married is trying to buy a dress that's too small for them, and there's no one helping them. So I started a business called The Bride Buster. And for 5 years, I just prepped women for their weddings. That's all I did for 5 years. And it was a fantastic business. I did incredibly well with it. It was a real harsh learning curve for me, because I had been used to dealing with primarily men, where my style was very militant. My style was very do as I say, just because I said it. And I found with women, when I very first started out working with women solely, that didn't go down very well. And there was a lot of pushback. And I found that women, they did not like to be dictated to. And I found that women really enjoyed, they connected with me much better. And I got far better results out of them when I gave them a lot of support, and when they felt as though we were a team, myself and them, and that they were kind of almost letting me down if they weren't compliant. So I think that community, even more so than with men, is important with women. Is that what you've found in your business?
Yeah, definitely. the community part of Lissome is hugely important to me. I've had the gym 6 and a bit years now, and there are women in my gym who, and they may not be members now, but they came along, they didn't really have a circle of friends. They met through Lissome, and then years later, I see photos of them where they're bridesmaids for each other's weddings, and they are godmothers to each other's kids. And, you see these lifelong connections, friendships that just last. And that really, I love that. I love when I walk down Derby Street and I see, little groups of the girls going out for drinks and having a good time. That community aspect is so important to me. And that's really the behind what I do. And it is also, I'm very passionate about helping the girls to realize their highest selves. So, I want them to have the confidence and the strength to just chase their best life, whether that means, starting a business because they've now got a community behind them of women that would support them, whether it means leaving an abusive relationship, which we've seen, whether it means, becoming a mom and having a community of women supporting you in that. And, whether it's, I've seen women go through terminal illness and have a community around them, in that respect. So it really is. In reference to the male thing though, do you know what's super interesting? We do sometimes do social events where our members bring along their partners and their husbands. And, I have so many men that say to me, because I make a point of spending time with them so I can get to know them. And I don't think I've met one husband that hasn't said to me, I wish that something like this existed for men. So I deep down think that men yearn for a community like this. And it's really interesting. I look, I'm all about unisex and mixed sex. I love training with men. I really do. But what I think over the years is I think there's a really sacred space for women to exist on their own and have that time. I know that the girls love coming to the gym and not having to think about wearing makeup or dressing for a guy, or worried about that judgment or anything like that. But I also think men need that too. I think men need a space where, they can have a group of guys that they can train with and maybe go for a game of touch footy with, maybe go for a beer with. I think men are equally wanting that too, that deeper connection. And I have no doubt in the future, something like this with some sort of really incredible leadership, and obviously I'm a female, so I can't do it, but I've had so many male PTs come to me and start their own businesses. And I've said to them, someone needs to do this. I think there's something in this. Men's groups are becoming more and more of a thing. And so I do think that would exist for men too. But yeah, you can't deny certain dynamics and certain things change when you're in a group. If you're in a room and it's all men, think about that feel. Think about that feeling. Yeah. And then if you slowly add women to it, what's that like? And then I know what it feels like to be in a room full of women. And then I know exactly what it gets like when you see one or two guys come in. I know how crazy they get, girls get all, especially if he's nice looking or, you know what I mean? They're just as bad as men can be. But you know what I mean? There's a real difference in dynamic when, you have
100%. And as someone of the opposite sex, there's no way that you can know what that dynamic is when it is all, say, for example, women. I have no idea what that dynamic is when it's all women, because obviously as soon as I'm there, it's not, and vice versa. But, I really, I really do think that what you're saying, especially in this day and age with, depression being so high in both men and women, social media has really created a physical disconnect from people, and we're not really socializing and connecting in ways that we used to. I know that before social media, you kind of had to get out and connect with a group of friends, or you would kind of become a bit of a hermit. So people just force themselves to, but there's no real, I guess there's no reason to actually get out of the house anymore. And it's probably more crucial than ever to do something like that. So I think it's a really, really good point that you make.
That's an interesting point though, Stu, that you both led into through different circles. I think I'd love to delve into one part we haven't actually really delved into with many guests, I suppose, is once you sort of embark on a certain direction in life, like you said, being your higher self, as you put it, Nerida, and a lot of people coin that through different phrases. But once you've sort of, really found your drive, and a lot of listeners who might be going, I'm about to take the plunge, or, they've gathered their information, they want to have a go at something, they're about to take that step. I think one thing that's really important is to also let them know the impact that has, not just on their, financial or their work life, but personal as well, and what that does to your circle of friends around you, what it does to relationships you're in. The people that surround you are so responsive to the energy you put out, and I think it might always be not a low light reel, but I think a very real part of business that doesn't often get spoken about. And when you spoke on depression this year, I thought there is a very real, almost isolating sense in the beginning when you are used to living life in a certain format, and then you break away from that mold, and there's a very real teething phase where people around you sort of have to decide, like, am I in or off the train? And it is very often you find yourself very much solo for periods of that until you gravitate towards the people with a similar energy. Like, how have you found that your 6 years in business, Stu, you're going on decades as well, like relationships, I think with people, like both personal relationships and friendships and stuff, the personal element, I think, is what's fascinating. What have you found in your adaptation to business life?
Yeah, well, to be honest, if you looked at who I was 10 years ago, who I was socializing with, the life I was living, you would not, like, I'm light years apart from what I'm doing now, like I'm not, it was really that introduction to CrossFit that all of a sudden I was exposed to this, community of people that owned their own businesses, read books, talked about ideas, and that really kind of encouraged me and supported me in that journey. And if it wasn't for that, honestly, I don't think I would have ever done it. So, there are a couple of key people in my life that I look back on that have just constantly elevated me to think bigger. And, that is honestly hands down. I'm so grateful to have had those people come into my life. And that's all I try to be for other people. And so, yes, of course, that meant like making time and space for those people meant I didn't have that time and space for some other people. But that's okay. I've made peace with that. And I just try to acknowledge that there are all these different types of relationships that you can have in your life. And some of them can be more social and more kind of surface level and more of a, just a out and about, catch up for a drink, and have a bit of fun. And then you've got those other people in your life that you have that deeper connection with, that you can rely on, that you can go to when you've got a problem and they can help you. And I think it's all about recognizing that and acknowledging that and trying to make sure that, you're aware of the time that you spend and who it's with and how you're feeling in that moment too, I'm such a big believer in energy. And, if I can feel my energy draining and feeling really depleted with somebody, and I often feel like that when I'm around people that gossip a lot, that talk about other people, judge other people, I can feel myself immediately. And don't get me wrong, like I've been there, I've done that myself. And now look back, I did that when I was at a low point in my life. So, it's that phrase, average people talk about other people, or sorry, that saying where it's like, some people talk about other people, some people talk about ideas, and some people talk about the future or something like that. I'm butchering it, but yeah, it's like, yeah. And I don't think it's about falling out with those people, but it's just about, and I think also too, I'm lucky because starting a business means you've got no time. So I think people understand that. But yeah, the people that I hang around definitely are a lot different now. And that changes every year, like not every year, but I'm constantly trying to grow and to evolve. So yes, I've outgrown, I outgrew my first relationship through all this journey, I wanted him to be a part of this. I so desperately wanted him to be part of my CrossFit community. And ironic, like looking back, he just wasn't ready. And that was the thing that kind of ended it, because I was ready for that next step, that next level. And he wasn't. So yeah, like big believer in that for sure.
I think that there's something to be said for, what you were just talking about, really struck a couple of chords with me actually. So I don't really know exactly how to begin my response, but, I've found the same sort of thing in my life. And I think that your mindset is very similar to mine. And I'll talk, in this way to people, and I'll say, I try to distance myself from gossip, and, I try to be a good man, and I try to, have good principles and this and that. And I think some people confuse that for me thinking that like I'm the Messiah or something. But at the end of the day, I'm just expressing how I'm trying to be. I've got my own failings, and there's times when I, catch myself gossiping or, catch myself doing all these things that I try to avoid people who do, So it's, I think it's all a growing experience. And I think the other thing too that really interested me in what you were saying was you kind of touched on the fact that you are going to maybe outgrow some of your old relationships and stuff like that. And I think, people have come to me in the past as well and said, Stu, why do you think, you don't hang out with this person or that person anymore? Do you think it's, because of X, Y, Z? And like, I think that the answer really is that some people just aren't meant to be in your life forever. Some people are meant to be in your life at that point in time when you were in a growing phase. And that was exactly what you needed at that time. And, you move on, and there's some relationships in your life that are supposed to be forever. And I think that that's okay. I don't think that it's necessarily a negative thing if somebody's not in your life now that was in your life, say 5 years ago. Even if you were super, super close to them at the time, it's not all bad, the fact that you've gone your own separate ways. Hey, maybe they're finding some people in their life that they need, and that might not be you. That might, for their direction, it might not be you, So
especially
very
with the
interesting how the circles change.
Sorry, you're so right, man. That is really, that's a thing. Hey, like people slot in. There's like a universal karmic balancing act, I think, where people sort of get different parts get slotted in at different parts of the runway, and I think just like your business journey has to evolve at a given pace, otherwise it wouldn't make sense. If any one of us got given our current models we have to run in day one, you'd just fold under the stress and you'd just cry, and it'd be a bad time and blah blah. But
I still cry sometimes, mate.
Daily, man, and people around us all cry. But look, I think that the energy part was something that you actually mentioned off air when we first met, Nerida, and it's been with me since. I think I hadn't thought of it in those terms yet, but I think a lot of people who get like our listeners who are keen to do their own thing in the business space, particularly fitness, where it's a people game. It's very much relationship building. It's very much, whether it's personal training, owning a gym, building a community in some sense, it requires, it's very much, you're a people person usually. And people tend to be extroverted, and that tends to come with a certain amount of energy we donate, I guess, in any given space to facilitate what we're good at. If we want to build our craft, you've got the skill and the talent, but also you're also pushing that out there with so much so much energy that it just has to happen, right? But I guess where you touch on a really interesting point is there are certain people that recharge that energy, certain people that take away from it, is what we sort of came up to on the weekend. And I think that is an interesting point I'd love to flesh out. That fascinates me, because I hadn't thought of it in such, like, in that particular analogy yet, but it seems really legitimate. That seems a pretty good summary, hey, of what that looks like. So how do you, what's your sort of interpretation of people in your life, what they bring, how your energies bounce off them, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I remember, I don't even know how this came about, because I remember just coming away from somebody, and I was telling my partner at the time, I said, I don't know what it is about that person, but I just always come away so inspired. And he said to me, well, that's an energy, like that's an energy exchange, that's, you're on the same level, you're on the same frequency. And I remember just kind of thinking, oh, that's interesting. And then I became really aware of that whenever I was with people. And then I really started observing, what made me feel good, what made me feel depleted. And then personally, I found that, and it always ties back to your personal values. So my personal values are connection, love and connection, contribution, and growth. They're my three, core values. So when I'm with someone and we're talking about things that are in love, that are in connection, we're talking about community, we're talking about, like people in a positive way, I always feel, really inspired, really light, really happy, really free. When I'm talking to people about contribution, like how we can help others, what we can do for our communities, whether it's volunteer work, whether it's stuff in your own community, whether it's charity work, like, again, I find myself just, feeling really good. And then growth, whenever I'm with people that are like talking about ideas, talking about books and podcasts and leaders and thought leaders and stuff like that. Again, I just get so excited. And then, what I've really noticed on the flip side is I've really started paying attention to what made me feel flat. And, there can be people that are energy suckers. And, I haven't really picked up on what it is, but some people can just come in and, they just aren't quite at the same, maybe they're not in the same space that you are. Maybe they don't have the same values you hold. When people put you up on a pedestal, I find that they're really draining, when they don't, like, I get that a bit sometimes, not to sound like a wanker, but, because I've been in this industry for a long time and I speak on a lot of podcasts and I've spoken at a lot of events, sometimes people can really put me up on a pedestal, and I'm a human being, and I've made mistakes and I've done, things that I'm not proud of, like any human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the first thing I like to do, just kind of like cut that. Or when people try and, they come into the gym and they try and like, I suppose they try to, we get it a lot. We get people imitating what we do a lot, and, that's okay. That's fine. And I find, gossip, judgment, all that sort of thing. And you know what, going back to that, at first I used to just kind of shut down and not want to spend time with these people. And I had the same thing. I had people say to me, you don't have time for us anymore. Like, you're never around, you're never available. And I found myself just being very clear and open and honest and saying, you know what, I really care about you. I really love you. I value our friendship. We've been friends for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. I want to be able to see that continue. However, these are my boundaries. Yes, I want to spend time with you, but I don't want to gossip about this person. I don't want to listen to your relationship if you're not willing to do something about it. I can't stand that. I can't stand people going over and over and over their intimate relationships and they don't do anything about it. Like, it just, if they want your advice and you give it to them and they don't act on it, I'll give them 3 goes. And then after that, it's just like, you know what, can we talk about something else? And you can just very kindly but ruthlessly set a boundary. And it's interesting, when you set that boundary, you can very quickly see the people that are really meant to be in your life, whether they're willing to kind of hear that and go, you know what, you're right, I'm sorry. I've been really acting, X, Y, Z. I don't want to behave like that either anymore. I want to, I value our friendship and I want it to continue. And then that friendship turns into something else, which is really cool. You can kind of, elevate them and kind of get them to kind of, exist on your level a little bit and get inspired to think bigger, or they're not there yet. And that just kind of drifts away and it becomes more of a, something you see them out and about, and it's like a hello and maybe a quick drink and that's it. And that's okay. So I think it's really important to be clear about why and what it is. And because I'm a big believer that there's a lot of people that just have no idea. They don't know what they don't know. So I think it's important to make it's not about you, but this is how I find us spending our time all the time, and it doesn't make me feel good. And when you don't make it about them, you make it about you. This is how I feel. It's a lot less kind of like combative, and therefore they can kind of go, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel that way.
I think especially for me in the last 5 years, since, universal supplements has really kind of taken off and grown rather fast. I've had in social circles a lot of like almost light bulb moments where I'll be sitting there with a group of friends that I always had a good time hanging out with. And I'll be sitting there and it's almost like withdrawing from the room and watching and listening to the conversation going, wow, is this really what we talk about? And then you go, yeah, it is. And it's what we've been doing for the past 5 years. And then you kind of, for me, I'll get these moments where I'm like, you know what? I'm not having fun right now. I don't want to be around here. But I've never, as you just put it, I've never thought of it as like sucking energy out of me, but it does. You go home from a social outing like that and you're exhausted and you're just like,
and do you know what?
Like, oh man, what's that?
Because you're acting out of your values. You now are more aligned with your values. So when you act out of it, you feel yuck. You feel gross. You feel like, oh, can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't feel good. It's because deep down you're acting outside of your values.
Yeah. And it is really interesting that the people that you tend to start to align more with and get a real kick out of spending time with tend to be other people who, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same industry, but they tend to be people who are doing similar kind of things, right? Like Will and I, obviously we're both heavily involved in the supplement industry, and you're in a completely different facet of the fitness industry. But I get a kick out of listening to what you're saying and what you're doing. and you tend to find that your circle of friends becomes people who are doing similar things regardless of the industry, which is very cool and strange.
It's amazing.
It's that energy thing, I think. It is, because I think business cuts out your ability to I think it accelerates things. Hey, I think business puts you at a pace. It puts you on a track that doesn't allow you the luxury of being able to dodge a bullet. If you have a personal flaw, if you have a particular way of thinking, if you have a victim mentality, or if you have some particular bit of your wiring that isn't up to the task, business life has a very cruel and very fast way of reminding you that fault. And it will, if you have a shortfall, it will find it for you, and it will let you know very quickly. Whereas in normal life, in a 9 to 5, you might limp by for years, getting just under the radar, being the grey man, and you're cool. You don't have to address those personal issues to get to the next stage in the game. Or you might be able to get to the next stage without having to address any of these things. And I think so by default, when I meet someone who's done half a decade or a decade in the game, and you go, you've had a pretty tough slog. You've probably had to iron out a lot of the creases I've had to iron out. By default, we're probably going to get along, because we've had probably a lot of the same hurdles. We've probably had to strip back a lot of the same habits that kept us from those hurdles. I just think you sort of got this unspoken thing. As soon as you talk to someone who's done it, and you see the bags under their eyes, and you see them glued to their phone as well, and you're just like, there you are. We're going to get along fine. But you also understand you just transcend a fair bit of just petty stuff too, because I think in the end you just end up with bigger scale dramas that demand more of you than you would in regular life, I suppose, otherwise. But yeah, it doesn't always have to be purposeful. It just happens by default. It doesn't allow you that same leeway.
Do you still get strung up in the petty stuff though, Nerida? Do you still get pissed off in traffic, or?
I get road rage all the time. All the time. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not perfect, and I'm definitely not. Like, I look back and I can think of ways I've behaved, but do you know what? It's not about that. It's not about having been a saint. What I'm a big believer in, and it's funny, a lot of my girls always kind of get blown away whenever I, if something happens and I kind of lose my cool, I'll always come back to them now, and I'll go away and I'll think about it, and I'll be like, why did I react like that? And then I kind of drill down on it, and I'm really lucky. I've got this one head coach who I can talk to, and she's amazing. She's one of my closest friends, and I can kind of unpack it, and then I'll come back and I'll say to the girls, you know what, I'm really sorry that I lost my cool in this meeting. I think this is what was going on for me, and now I'm mindful of it. I'm going to try and be more, vigilant on this next time, and I'm going to try, to be better next time. And then they can just go, you know what, thank you. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? I think where leaders go wrong is they don't apologize. They don't acknowledge their faults. They don't acknowledge their failures and their mistakes. And I'm really big on that. So I don't think it's about never having tripped up. Like, we are human beings, and we are going to react. We are going to act out of alignment. We are going to make mistakes. But it's, and last year, 2020 was like horrific. Like, I remember I lost all hope. I was sat down in my accountant sat me down and said to me, when a week after COVID hit, and this was before the government was going to roll out anything to support small businesses. And, we sat down and we looked at my, assets, and we looked at my debts and all that sort of stuff. And she said, you know what, I think we really need to work out your bankruptcy plan. We're going to have to step this out. We're going to have to think about what your staff are going to do. And I just remember just being in disbelief, sitting there for hours, and we're making a plan. Like, when this happens, we pull this lever, and when this happens, we do this. And every single staff member, I was like, right, she could probably go to this place and work, and I could probably call this person and see if they take them on, and this person might be able to get her old job back. Like,
isn't it funny how we take a personal responsibility for what our staff do next? Because I've been the same way. If I have, even if I've needed to let someone go because they weren't the right person for my business, I've always tried to line them up with something else, because, I think it is just something that you do if you care. If you care about your stuff, and if you care about your business, you're like, I can't just, it's more, there's more to it than just, this is a business and they're part of the cogs that make it run. There's this
100%. My head coach, she left, NIB to, off the back of me kind of saying, passionately telling her what a great leader she'd make. I wanted to take her on this journey with me. Like, that was the one person I was brokenhearted for. Like, I remember just so many sleepless nights thinking, if she had stayed at NIB, she would not be losing her job right now. Like, I just had this overwhelming. I didn't care what happened to me. I kind of thought to myself, so many people are so scared of going bankrupt. There's so much shame around it. And I don't have any, like, I remember someone saying to me, oh, well, if you go bankrupt, at least it's due to COVID. Like, you won't really, no one's going to judge you. And I remember getting so angry about that. I've had plenty of friends that have gone bankrupt. And some of them have gone on to be even more successful because they went through that. Adversity is so important to go through. And do you know what I hate? I actually hate this. I can't even imagine the stress and the mental, like what people go through when they go through financial hardship. And you know what makes me so angry? When you see, the local newspapers and the local news, putting these businesses all over the news and shaming them and saying this company's going into financial administration and this and that. And then you see all these comments of people, and I just think, I get so angry because I just think you have no idea what these people are going through right now. And what they need is our love and support. Sorry?
And what you invest in it too. Like, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I think. I think most of us are probably looking at being in a similar space. I had the bankruptcy talk about 6 times as well. And I think like last April, May, and I think the biggest part of it is you're like, oh yeah, I've been broke for half a decade anyway. I don't care. That's nothing new. It's nothing about that. You accept that when you start a business, you won't get to touch much of it. But the one part that became like really quite challenging, I think, is that you build it as the business pulls you to a different direction. Your identity follows it. So if the business went, it's such a big identity crisis. I think it would be really hard as well on so many people.
Yeah.
So many of us, especially personality-based businesses like in Stu's, in a brick and mortar, you as well. Your gym is you, and same with Stu. Universal Supplements is Stu to a large extent, even though there's other people in the chain. But and I think when that becomes such a big part of you and your life and what you've built for years, it's more incomprehensible. I think not the financial liquidation, just the concept of that baby you've built going, like it would be.
It's your baby. It's your dream. Like that's the hard thing. Like you said, a lot of building of the business, you were broke most of the time. Like I didn't take a wage for the first 12 months, and longer than that, I didn't take a wage anyway. So concept and this dream that you believed in and you built from a little egg, and then it turned into a little baby and it grew up, and it's the loss of that hurts financially. Like we all know that we could go and work other jobs and we'd probably do very well in them. Like I've worked in other industries and done just fine, but that's not where that doesn't light the fire up inside my soul. So like financially, I'm very comfortable that I could go and find a job working a 9 to 5 somewhere. That's not the issue. The issue would be, am I losing my this dream that I've poured so much of my heart into? Obviously financial stress is always a stress for anyone in whether you're a multimillionaire or whether you're just scraping by. There's always financial stressors, but it's losing that dream.
That's a big one. And off the cuff sort of side question is like, I guess I got asked a really forward question from an accountancy firm the other day, and it was, why are you doing what you're doing right now? And it blew me out of the water because I've never in my entire time doing this asked myself that. It wasn't a thing. It was just, I like this. I love formula. I love making supplements. This does this. This helps people this way. That's cool. But no one's ever gone, she said, oh, what's your business plan? Why are you in this? Why have you got a business? And I'm like, well, I just liked it and just kept happening. And then it just, it sort of self-warranted more of it. And I just, and here I am. And you don't often, and I think Nerida, you quite like succinctly there defined your values even at a personal level pretty early on in the podcast. So like, I guess you've probably done more deeper thinking on this, but for you guys, I'd love to know, like, did you guys have any hinting, or like, did you guys start with a game plan? Because I think I it's so organic with myself, and I didn't have a clear answer of what I wanted it to look like and what my life would, they said, what would you like it to look like? How would you like this to play out for, as the business grows, and where do you want it to go? And I'm like, I've just been doing this because I'm just holding on for the ride. I never really thought it out so thoroughly. And I reckon that's the same for so many people starting a business. They've just sort of held on and just watched and just held on as hard as they could and just did what they wanted to with it. Have you guys found that, like, do you guys know? Or am I the only one?
Mine's really short and easy, Will. So I'll just give you mine first, because I'm sure Nerida's is better than mine.
Explain.
But basically, look, I came from a background completely not associated with fitness and training. Was a personal trainer, enjoyed that, but needed more money, so took a job working in a supplement store as a manager, and absolutely loved working with the people and helping the people. But with, a bit of a background in science, I started to look at some of the products that we were selling, and I started to really question those products, and I decided that I wasn't going to sell them anymore. And I was just the store manager. I wasn't, I didn't own that store. My store just so happened to be the highest performing store in that. It was a big supplement chain, 20 stores Australia-wide. And my store very quickly became the number one performing store in the country. And there were certain products I refused to sell. And then I was getting contacted by head office, and they were saying, why can our highest performing store not sell XYZ product? And I said, it's not that I can't sell them. He said, I won't. And that didn't go down too well. And so not long after that, there was that much tension between myself and head office that I went, I'm getting out of here, and I'm going to start this, but I'm going to start a store with a very, very simple plan. I will only stock products that are backed by the science. I will only stock products that I would use myself or that I would give to my mum. That's my whole business plan. I wanted to do exactly what I was doing because I loved it. I loved helping people. I loved serving people. But I couldn't sleep at night if some girl was coming in and putting all her hopes and dreams on me helping her lose weight, and I was selling her a product that not only might not help her, but could not help her based on what the data was telling me. So I wanted to start something where people could come and they could trust that they were getting real advice about not only supplements, but also the lifestyle and nutrition that must go along with it. And that was it. That's why I do what I do. I wanted to help people, and that's what I pride myself on doing every day.
Good answer.
That's a great answer. And I would say, like, whenever I see people, go separate ways in a workplace, it's always down to their values. It sounds like the people you're working for had the bottom dollar as their number one priority. It was profit. It was making money regardless of what that looked like. Whereas for you, your values sound like they're more around trust and honesty and maybe a little bit of contribution as well, like wanting to help people and be really genuine with that. So, it's interesting. I look at that like it's just a clash of valuures, So, yeah,
and it's really cool. Same sort of thing for you. Like, how did yours come about?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I first started, I was a bit like you, Will. Like, I just wanted it to exist because I thought it would be amazing. I kind of really fell into it by accident. And I just started training some friends, doing a little boot camp, and then it grew. Like, people were just asking me for training more and more. And I would say to them, come to my CrossFit gym with me. And they were just like, no way. We don't want to go to a CrossFit gym. We don't want to train with men. We don't want to do CrossFit. So then it got me thinking, and I was like, what about a women's only sort of CrossFit style gym? And then as soon as I kind of mentioned it, they just said, yeah, we can't wait to sign up. Let's do it. So I started off, so many people said to me, like, actually almost every person I knew said to me, it will never work. They said there'll be too much bitchiness, girls, big bunch of girls together. It won't work because you're cutting your market in half. So many people said it wouldn't work. And if I'd listened to them, I would never have started it. But I just had this deep feeling that it would work. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I didn't think about the profit. I didn't think about money. I just wanted it to exist. I'd sit down and write out the timetable, and I'd draw the logo, and I'd think about the quotes that I'd put on the wall, and I'd, write workouts, and I'd think about the social things I would do with them. And I was visualizing it. Now I look back, I realize I was doing that, but at the time I didn't realize that. So that's why it just happened. It just happened so easily because it was so aligned to my values. So it was very much by accident for the first probably 3 or 4 years. And it wasn't until I really sat down and I started talking, I started really intentionally spending some time with people that were in front of me in business. And they said to me, you need to get clear on a few things first. You need to find out what your mission is. You need to define your values. You need to think about what this looks like on a big scale, and you need to think about it, talk about it, manifest it constantly. And so we decided to do that. We do it constantly now. The biggest thing, people always ask me, why is the culture at Lissome so strong? It's because I talk about it to the point where I think I'm annoying people. People have to hear something 7 times before they really get it in their heads. So I'm just constantly going over and over and over. Our core values, our 3 core values at Lissome are community, excellence, and courage. And every one of our behaviors, it was funny. It was things would happen at the gym, and I really noticed it when it was things that I didn't like, and I would get so angry. I would think, oh, why is this person behaving this way? Why is she going out of our, I didn't realize it at the time, but she was stepping outside of our values. And it wasn't until Ash and I started talking about it that we realized that, and we were like, right, we need to get clear on these. And then we need to educate our community around what that is. So anti-behaviors, pro-behaviors. So say, for instance, community, right? A pro-behavior is you see someone you don't know, you make eye contact, you smile, and you approach them and introduce yourself. That's in line with our core values. If you want to be a part of Lissome, we expect that you behave that way. An anti-behavior is you see someone you don't know, you look down, you shy away, you walk away, and you ignore that person. And you know what? When I first started this gym, I would take anybody as a client. I would just honestly, if you were willing to pay the membership, I'd take you. Now that's very different. Now we have an intro week and we have a one-on-one where right from the get-go, we very much talk to our girls. We have a whole list of our 3 core values, and we have 5 anti and pro behaviors for each of them, and we step them through it. And we very honestly say, this is what we're going to expect of you. And if that doesn't sound good to you, that's totally fine. We don't want to waste your time or money. We don't want you to waste ours. And if that's the case, let us know what you're looking for, and we can point you in the right direction. There have been plenty of girls that are like, you know what? I don't really want to be a part of a community. I just want to do my own thing. No problem. Go and train at an Anytime Fitness or a Plus Fitness or something like that. I'll call the owner and organize you a one-on-one there or something. I'll help transition that. But then what often happens is girls are so inspired, they just kind of hear it and they go, wow, there's nothing better than listening to someone who knows so fully who they are and is not willing to bend on that no matter what. What?
You just with you talking just now, you've made me realize that I instill these kind of principles in my staff and to some extent in my customers without realizing it. When you're just talking about anti-behaviors, I just call them rules. And my staff know that it is one of our cardinal rules that we never, ever talk in a negative manner about our competition ever.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's one of the rules that my staff knows. If people try to engage with them in negative chat about the competition, we don't do it. If we are going to ever mention the competition, it must be positive. We never ever speak negatively about a product that we don't stock, regardless of if they personally believe that the product is good or bad. We never do it. We don't engage in that. We don't talk negative. And these are there's a bunch of these things that my staff knows are Stu's crazy rules that we just do, and it's part of what makes Universal Supplements special, is what I tell them. But the customers know too that if they come in wearing a competitor's shirt, we're going to treat them just the same as if they weren't, and that we're very comfortable with the fact that they shop at multiple places and they're probably being looked after at other places, and we're very, very happy about that. So these anti-behaviors and these, what was the other one what was the opposite of that?
So antis and pro. So pro
anti and pro behaviors. Yeah. So my customers know we have a rule where every single customer that after we finish the sale, it's not good enough just to say to them, all right, thanks for coming in today. They need to stop them and make the customer feel appreciated. So it might be, look, I just wanted to stop you and let you know that we really appreciate you coming in today. Being a small business, it means the world to us that you shop with us, and it's because you came in here that we exist. And that is required of them with every single sale that we make. And they know that's one of my rules. I didn't realize that my rules are just a combination of anti and pro behaviors that I almost force up, and they hate it because I jam them down their necks. And I come into the shop, and if I hear them make a sale and they don't do our closing appreciation thank you, then they know I'm going to be like, where was the appreciation thank you? And they're like, oh, I said thanks for coming. I'm like, that's not good enough. You know,
Do you
you've
know
got to
what?
stop.
This is where leaders go wrong. You know, they get frustrated when people act out of their values, like their staff act out of their values, and they don't nip it in the bud straight away, and they don't spend enough time. All I do now, like, you know, I train at both gyms that I own, and I spend time with my coaches, and I'm just constantly looking for those anti and pro behaviors. So what you need to do is you've always got to celebrate the things they're doing really well. So it's like, hey, I saw that you did this. This is awesome. But then, and also, you know, hey, I think you missed this today. How can we work on that so that you don't miss it next time? And that's where people go wrong. They don't do that enough. And you just got to do it constantly. I'm the same. I'm constantly, you know, saying, go and introduce yourself to that new person. And the girls, like, they just laugh.
Yeah, they think I must start thinking,
yes,
oh,
we're
here's
being
Stu
nice.
again. Here's Stu nagging me again for my appreciation. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's like, they'll even say, look, I did the thank you. And I'm like, no, you said, thanks for coming in today. You know, have a good day. I said, that's the thank you that you get at, you know, when you walk into any store. The thank you that they need to be stopped. They need to feel appreciated, and they need to know why we appreciate.
And that's all that people want to feel. People, you know, our human beings' number one need in life is to feel understood, to feel seen and heard. That's all we want. And the businesses that do really well are the ones that make people feel that way all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you've really actually kind of, I've had a few little light bulbs going off while we've just been doing this podcast. So that's really cool. That, you know, obviously I get a lot out of each guest that we have on, but I feel that, you know, as a business owner, I've gotten a lot out of today as well. So that's very cool. I want to pick your brain though a little bit. There's something I've been wanting to get out, but there hasn't really been a proper segue for it. So I kind of have just been sitting in the back of my head thinking it'll come up. Obviously you deal a lot with women. You are a woman. You know, it would, as you know, it's 2021. I shouldn't assume that, but it would appear as though you're a woman. And, you know, it's something that in this industry as a man is hard for us to tap into, is the women's market. And like, I feel that, you know, I'm very approachable. Like, I think that about myself. I feel that I'm approachable for women, and, you know, I try and market towards women. Actually, the majority of people think that I'm a bodybuilding store. The majority of my customers are women between 30 and 50 who want help losing a couple of kilos. That's the main people who come into my store. Yeah, sure, I serve guys who are trying to build up their biceps, but most of my customers are women now, and I've gotten better at encouraging women in and working with women. But I still notice that when a woman comes into my store, she'll stick to the back wall. She'll walk around. She'll try to find the product first before she, you know, I always leave from behind the counter and approach them and try and make them feel comfortable. But what are is it possible for a man to connect with women in this industry the way that you do? And if so, how can he do it?
So are you from East Coast Supplements Singleton?
No. I own Universal Supplements.
Universal, sorry. Have
Universal,
you got Instagram?
I do, yes. Universal Supplements.
Universal Supplements AUS?
AUS, yeah, that's me.
Okay, awesome. So, all right, this is the funny thing, right?
I'm open. Hey, I'm open to advice.
Yeah, so you say you want to attract women, right?
Yep.
Everything I look at on your page is men.
It's me.
And it's all men, and it's you, and it's other guys, and it's. Have you ever thought about sharing some of your members' testimonials on there, like showing a photo of one of your clients and talking about, you know, the success she's had? Have you interviewed any of your clients on this podcast?
Not my customers, no, but I think if you have a look at the story, I think I've got a really cool before and after of one of my weight loss girls on the story, and some messages from girls to the inbox with the weight loss girls. So I do share a little bit of it, but it's yeah, you're right. There probably needs to be more female content.
I can see.
What's that one?
See, he's a great.
See, that's a female.
That is. That's very. He's trying hard. He's trying. Like, see, I relate.
Actually, I get a lot of really, really lovely inbox because I get.
Get them on your social media. Talk about the people that you're helping. Talk about the people you want to help. You know what blows my mind on our podcast. You know, we interview our members. Like, we interview ordinary members and get them on our podcast. And do you know what? You know, for just an hour, they feel important. They feel like someone wants to hear their story. And then all of a sudden, when the podcast releases a week or two later, you've got all them sharing it and they're proud that they've spoken on a podcast. Then you've got 300 women resharing. My friend was on a podcast. How amazing is she? And then all of a sudden you get all these women that want to come in and, like the best thing you could do is like get the women that you want to help or that you are helping onto your social media, onto your podcast, sharing about how you've helped them. Because, if you're trying to help women between, did you say 30 and 50 years old?
Well, that's basically just who comes to me. So I do a lot of radio advertising, explaining.
If you want more of that, I should be seeing more of that on your, like we all go to social media straight away. We don't even go to websites anymore. The minute we hear of a business, we go straight to Instagram. I would be getting that on there. I'd be getting one of your women onto this show and talking to her and asking her, like, how have we helped you? What have we done for you? What's your experience when you come into the store? Why do you see us, above and beyond the other supplement stores? Like, what is it about us? Get that on there. Like, you know what I mean? So many people, try and like do all this advertising, this marketing and this targeted stuff. And it's like, blows my mind. Just
people want to see real people, right?
100%. They want to see real people. That's so like I have this other friend who works in psychology, right? So he interviews all these thought leaders and he's always like, how do I get more clients and this and that? And I said to him, what are the testimonials like that you've gotten from your own clients? Like the people that are coming to see you and all your therapists, and he's ranting them off and and I'm like, I've never seen any of those people on your podcast. Why don't you get them on your podcast? And he was just like, oh my God, I've never thought of that. It's like average people, like when you acknowledge them and you put them up on a pedestal, you'd be surprised what you'll get back from that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like probably one of the things that, now that you mention it, has worked well in the past. I know for the last couple of days, I get some really, really lovely messages off the girls that I work with. So I do things a little bit differently where the girls come in and they do a mini consult and I give them lifestyle advice. So I told them some dietary changes to make and some, whatever it might be for their output. And then I recommend some supplements, but I get them to check in every 2 weeks. And they come in and do that. And so I get a lot of lovely, lovely inbox messages from the girls saying, Stu, this is amazing. I've lost, X amount of weight. Thanks so much for coming into my life, whatever it is. And I never, ever thought about, asking the girls if I could share that content really. So
get someone to video it. Get someone to do an IGTV video of you running one of your clients through that. Say to someone, I'll offer you this for free if you let me film it and put it up on my Instagram. I guarantee you'll have 10 people keen to volunteer and do that all the time. Do it every month. This is the person we're helping this month. This is her journey. This is what she's trying to achieve. Stay tuned. We're going to check back in with her in 4 to 8 weeks time. Showcase these women on your social media. And I guarantee you, and get them talking about their relationship with you. Get them talking about you. And I guarantee you that'll be the first thing to get people like her to come in and see you.
Yeah, definitely. I got another question for you about women. You're my go-to girl guru at the moment. And this, I'd like to probably make this like for the whole broad fitness community, whether it be supplement stores or gyms or brand creators like Will. What are the big no-nos? What are the things that we're going to do that is going to totally put women off either A, buying a specific product, B, going to a gym, C, signing up for a challenge, whatever it might be? What are the big no-nos that men do?
Can I take a guess?
Or that the fitness industry does?
Before Nerida jumps in with the actual answer, can I take a guess? I have this hunch that I've suspected lately.
See how clueless we are? We have no idea. We have no idea what women want. We're out here just bubbling around.
We are, but this is my suspicion with the supplement industry and where it messes up all of its marketing. And companies will blow millions on it over in the States on marketing and putting out sponsored ads and paying for content and all this great stuff. Where I reckon what's the big no-no, what alienates people is having the ripped guy or girl with a six-pack on the beach who just, or in a gym, covered in oil, just looking insane as the face of your product. I think that
100%.
That alienates everyone. Even those people who are in that shape at the time who might resonate with that usually have so much of an ego that it doesn't really sit well with them anyway. It's almost threatening, They don't it's such an That is what I reckon is like the 101. If you want to make something for, you know, a busy mum to take as a morning coffee, don't advertise it with a size 6 girl who weighs 47 kilos, you know, doing
Exactly.
That's my guess.
So,
But
Will, are you trying to tell me you want me to put a picture of the dad bod on the front of my store?
No.
Scrabble test I'll sell. But go on, Nerida. Sorry, I cut you off. Now you're the actual authority.
No, you've nailed that. I agree with that. I think what we need to be doing more is showcasing real people, real men, real women, you know, real bodies. Like, it's just insane. Like, there's, you know, come on, it's 2021. Enough already. Like, you know, we know too much now about how detrimental that this constant messaging that we need to weigh less, that we need to look thinner, we need to, you know, be more muscular, whatever it is. You know, I know that men suffer from this, you know, inability or this sense of like, I should, you know, like I'm a single girl, right? And I'm dating men. And when they find out I own a gym, the first thing they say is, oh, you probably only date guys that are ripped and jacked and, you know, bodybuilders. And I'm like, far out. Like, that is so beyond what a woman really wants in a man. But anyway.
Right. So you told me I've been wasting the last 15 years.
But it's like, you know, showcasing real people more. But also, like, you know, so I'll tell you a little story, right? When I first started, we did do a lot of weight loss and we did a lot of challenges. And, you know, even though I went through the journey I went through, I still believed that it was more about trying to feel better, trying to think about, you know, like improvements you're making on your life, you know, being more active, being able to like move, being able to sit on the floor, stand back up, you know, being able to just like live life to the fullest, you know, sleep well, all that sort of stuff, have energy. But we would still show before and after photos, right? We would still do that. We still did a couple of challenges. And then about 2 years ago, I had a psychologist approach me and say, hey, do you really understand how damaging these before and after photos are to women, and especially the young women that you have in your clientele? And, you know, I really argued the point where I was like, you know what, I know, but because, you know, it's like you put out a before and after photo and it's like throwing, you know, bait to fish. Like you throw, I just would know if I put out a before and after photo on a Sunday night, I would immediately have 30 to 40 messages in my inbox. I'm starting tomorrow, straight away. And so I'd say to her, I'd argue the point that no, once I get them in, they then see we're not about that. They then start to feel better. They train. They might lose a little bit of weight, but the focus isn't all about that. And she said, look, I'd love to sit, you know, have a meeting with you and sit you down and talk you through it. And I remember going to this meeting and I remember sitting there for like 2 hours and listening to her rattle off all the statistics and how, you know, how damaging it is to kids, girls, especially as young as 8 and 9 years old, and that they're going on diets and they're not eating food and they're chewing gum. And it impacted me so much. I've never posted a before and after since. And so I think for me, the biggest thing that I see that makes me angry in the fitness space today. So I heard someone say it once, he's the owner of Sweat. So he's like a multi-million-dollar, you know, company. And he said the things that people do wrong is they contradict themselves constantly. You've got to figure out who you are and you never, ever go against that. No matter what, no matter, like, so say for instance, Kayla Itzeness, right? You'll never see her pictured in photos looking sexually provocative, you know, showing off her boobs or a butt or anything like that. She always buys all of her own activewear. She does not align, like she doesn't take any freebies. She pays her own way all the time. She always speaks with positivity and she's inspiring and she's this and that. Do you know what I see a lot of people do these days is, especially some other women's only gyms, they use the tagline and it's actually word for word, which cracks me up. We want to help women, no matter what age, shape or size. You know, we've been saying that for 6 years. Women of all ages, shapes and sizes, we celebrate that. And we want to make a space where every one of those women can feel at home, like they belong. And it doesn't matter what you look like. You're celebrated for what you can do. You know, if you can lift heavy, you can run fast, you can do amazing pull-ups, all that sort of stuff. But then what I see these women do is they project this message, but then on the flip side, they sell a challenge and they start talking about weight loss and they're like, sign up to our latest challenge. Let's do this, let's do that. And the owners are talking about how they're, you know, currently sitting heavier than they normally, you know, and I just think you're totally contradicting yourself. Like, what are you doing? Are you all about embracing women as they are, or are you trying to help women? Like, what's the thing here? And it's a tough one because, you know, it's like you want to help people. Like, do you know the one thing that happens when girls come into my gym on their very first day? I always say to them, what are your goals? And they always say, I want to lose X amount of kilos. I want to fit into this size dress. I want to weigh this much. And then I kind of go, okay, no problem. Forget about that for now. Let's just focus on training consistently. Just turn up, be consistent. And then after a couple of weeks, you know, then we'll look at your food and your diet, and we can tee you up with a nutritionist, and we look at that. And then 6 months later, that we ask them what your goals are. And they say, oh, I want to be able to run a kilometer in under 5 minutes. I want to be able to do 10 pull-ups. I want to be able to lift, you know, I want to be able to back squat 100 kilos. Like, all of a sudden, and they still look amazing. You know, they've had the transformation, but that hasn't been the focus. What we do is we focus on training. We focus on the journey. We don't focus on the outcome. And that just happens as a byproduct of it. So I think the biggest thing brands do is they, you know, they're willing to talk. I think they don't know who they are truly. And so you've got to know who you are, but you've also got to know who you're not.
I think that's really, like you said, it's an incredibly difficult tightrope to balance, because I think that all of us are seeking to improve ourselves to some extent. But I think that you're right. There probably is too much focus on thinking that the only improvement we should be making on ourselves is possibly weight loss.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, right? So, you know, if you can't see yourself stick to something, like the biggest thing where people go wrong is like, how many women have you seen? I've seen thousands of women, you know, do a challenge, lose 10, 15 kilos, and then put it back on straight after the challenge is over. You know, they go so strict, so restrictive, so like they adopt a lifestyle for 10 weeks that they can't sustain for 10 years. Yeah, well, so I think that's the fitness industry has a lot of work to do in this space. The fitness industry needs to start encouraging people and educating people on how to, you know, to find something that's sustainable long-term, and find something that they enjoy and that makes them feel good. And we need to talk about movement, and we need to talk about, you know, a wholesome diet. But we also, like, do you know how heartbreaking it is to take 20 girls out to breakfast on a Saturday morning and to sit there and see the one or two girls that is so anxious about what she's going to order on the menu that she sits there and she talks to the waitress like, you know, can I have an egg white omelet and no oil and no butter and none of this and none of that and da da da. And they can't, like, they're sitting in this breakfast and they're so anxious about eating, and they're watching what other people are eating and they're judging them, and they're, you know, like, I'm sorry, but I think I'm probably more sensitive than you guys are, because I've seen women come into my gym that are dangerous. You know, I've seen so many anorexic women that I just cannot be a part of that message. I can't be a part of that message anymore. Yeah. And I just think that we need to celebrate all shapes and sizes. Yes, we need to aspire people to want to live their best lives and feel healthy, but it's not about the way that they look so much, but more about the way that they feel. Because, you know, I would argue that, you know, a healthy person can, you know, go to the gym or move 5-6 times a week and enjoy that, and eat, you know, a diet that supports that, and, you know, do things that make them feel happy, whether that's go to the beach and jump in the water, or whether it's ride their bike to work, or whether it's spend time with their kids, read, journal, listen to podcasts, music, whatever it is. But then also on the weekend, they can go out with their mates and they can have a beer, or they can go out for girls' night and have a cocktail and some cheese and not be, you know, caught up in that. You know what I mean? It's like, we've got to talk more about that.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that that point that you mentioned there about the challenges, because I think I'm 100% on board with you there. And it's something that I say to my girls almost on a daily basis. And the fact is, like, over the past 10 years, I've seen probably 50 or more challenges in our local area. And, you know, so I've seen 50 challenge winners. And of those challenge winners, do you know how many I've seen stay in that shape?
Yeah, exactly.
0, not a single one. So I say to my girls, with any change that you make, you need to ask you, and I actually wrote an article about this that went quite viral a few years back. And the article was called the 30-year challenge, because at the time, everyone was doing 30-day challenges. And I wrote an article called the article was called the 30-year challenge. And the whole premise of it was, if you're going to make a change and you can't say to yourself, I can make this change for the next 30 years, don't bother making that change.
Don't do it.
And that. Because if you don't maintain the change, then you don't get to maintain the result that occurs from that change. So I get girls coming in with.
If I steal that phrase?
No, go for it.
I'll acknowledge you in it, but that's a really good phrase.
Yeah. So, you know, if you can't maintain this change for the next 30 years, don't make the change at all.
Yeah.
And that's something that I really, really drive home with my girls. And a lot of the girls come into my shop with preconceived ideas about what I'm going to tell them, because they've been walked into another shop and they've been going, here's a fat burner that's going to make you lose 10 kilos. And I don't do that. I go through dietary changes and lifestyle changes with them. And I focus on getting them healthy. And I tell them, let's not worry about what's happening with the weight. If that occurs, that's fantastic. But I have a good feeling that if we get you healthy and we improve your mindset, then your body's probably going to take care of itself. But that 30-year challenge article that I wrote was really big for a bit, and it got very popular and a lot of shares, and then it kind of died out. And then I saw the 30-day challenges starting to return. And
but do you reshare that every so often?
I don't. I haven't actually. Like, I tell my girls who are face to face with me, but it's really hard. You know, I say to any of my girls, right, and this is something I say commonly as well. I say, look, you come to me and you've said, Stu, I want 20 kilos off. I could take 20 kilos off you in 2 weeks if I wanted to. All I need to do is put you in Auschwitz, and then come and get you in 2 weeks, and you'll be 20 kilos lighter. But do you want to live like you're in Auschwitz for the next 30 years? No. Okay, so let's not do it that way. Or they'll come in and they'll say, Stu, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, I have to give up the alcohol. I say, whoa. Are you wanting to give up alcohol for the next 30 years? Maybe the answer is yes. All right, cool. Let's take it out then if that's what you want to do. But if you enjoy a little bit of wine or whatever, let's look at how much you're consuming, and let's look at a way that you can enjoy it. Do you love pizza? Yes, I love pizza. Are you going to cut it out forever? No. Well, let's include pizza in what you do. And so, you know, this whole concept that you're speaking of, which is make sustainable change, is really the key to what I do with my girls, because I tell them, I want to get you healthy from now until you're 99, not for the next 30 days or not for the next 12 weeks or 90 days or whatever it might be, you know. So sustainable change is really the goal. And it's where I've found success as well. Because my girls, you know, it might take us a little bit longer. I'm not going to take 20 kilos off them in 10 weeks. But, you know, I think that sustainable change, and they're happy knowing that the changes that they're making are going to be positive for their mental health, for their heart health, you know, for their cholesterol levels, you know, for their lean muscle mass, for their skeletal structure, whatever it might be. They're happy with those changes. And if I'm like sharing those changes with them along the journey, they feel like they're hitting these little goals along the way. And it seems to be so much easier for them to stick to and so much easier for them to maintain long term, you know. And like you said as well, I've had girls come in eating like, you know, 900 calories. And they're coming in asking me for like fat burners and heavy stimulants to increase their metabolic rate. And I'm going, oh, like, what are you doing here? You know, but there's some guidance needed.
Yeah, it's play the long game, and is a nice recurring theme that I think that we've put into that end segment. And I think being conscious of Nerida, we've had you for a good chunk of your time. We're very appreciative of you contributing this afternoon. I think getting the three of us who are so passionate about this industry, it shows, because we just gobbled up a beautiful bit of content, but you know, it felt effortless putting out some really good content. Like that is some good values there. Very, very. I think what was different from what we've had historically, I think, is we tend to have on guests who are like-minded, but I think a clear definition of why you're doing what you're doing and what's it stand for is something that guests can take, like listeners can take away. I think today we haven't really had that as a strong message so far. So thanks for bringing something unique to this episode, Nerida. We really appreciate
you. Oh, honestly, like I love talking about this sort of stuff, and I'm very passionate about this industry, and I just want to see it continue like to get better and better. I want to see other business owners, you know, thinking more consciously and acting with more intention. and genuinely trying to help people, and just constantly questioning themselves and asking them, like I'm constantly asking myself, if I'm doing a good job, or what your direct success is directly linked to the amount of work you've done on yourself. It's the amount of, it's how much you've evolved as to, how successful you're going to become. So I'm always asking myself, how do I need to grow? Where do I need to develop in order to have a bigger impact and to be able to help more people? So I just feel like if we're all doing that more and more, we can really help people. It's such a ripple effect. We all know that, you help one person and then she goes home and all of a sudden her family are, becoming more active and thinking about what they're eating on the weekends and just making better choices and being more intentional. So yeah, whatever I can do to help the bigger picture, I love that. And so thank you for having me on. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely awesome chatting to you, Nerida. Thanks for sparking a little bit of thought in, both myself and Will, as well as our listeners. Absolutely awesome time.
I'm glad you got value out of it, guys. Thanks for having me on. It was such an honor.
Absolutely.
See you later, guys.
Thanks for listening.